Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to another video. Welcome back to another episode Beyond the Touchline. This is the pre-game week show for game week 28. As always, we've got 10 games to go through. Let's immediately jump right in, drop a like on the video, guys are enjoying this series, and of course subscribe if you're new. Let me know in the comment section down below how you guys think game week 28 will pan out. But yeah, let's jump right in. So as always, the table, compared to last time out, it's exactly the same, of course. Liverpool, obviously, as I said, one step closer to winning the league, and you've got the bottom three teams, one step closer to relegation. We talked about, I think, for the past couple of game weeks now, Wolves, Ipswich, and Leicester. It's 1 in 3 that's going to survive, obviously, and as it stands, it's probably leaning towards Wolves. 5 points is a reasonable gap, and I think when you're relegation threatened, it's probably a little bit too hard to close down. If I look above, it's again talking about Nottingham Forest all the way down to Aston Villa, 6 points separating third to 10th. That's just crazy to me. But we've discussed that enough in the last episode. And as for the statistics, as I said, Salah 42 goal contributions in 28 games. It's just incredible if you ask me. Obviously, my player of the season by far, without a shadow of a doubt. And honestly, Liverpool are to really win the league this season. They've really got to thank him. And I think when he leaves next year, or if he's going to leave next year at least, if he's not going to have a contract with his name, it will be a problem for Liverpool. Arne Slot will have to figure out a way to culminate a culture without Mohamed Salah, or his game plan without Mohamed Salah, and I think that would not be very, very easy. City have shown that it's really difficult already, with the players aging, Bernardo Silva, Gundogan, Kevin De Bruyne, all these players who were so influential when we were winning the quadruple. Now, without them, potentially that could, inspire a lot more problems actually. So there must be a way to solve this issue, and I think Liverpool will have to really solve this big Mohamed Salah issue. Right, so here are the games for game week 28. We're starting things off with Nottingham Forest City, followed by Liverpool, Southampton, Palace, Ipswich, Brighton, Fulham, Brentford, Villa, Wolves, Everton, Tottenham, Bournemouth, Chelsea, Leicester, of course, the biggest game of the weekend, Manchester United and Arsenal, and last but not least, West Ham United and Newcastle. Right, first of all, Nottingham Forest and City, I think this is arguably the second biggest game of the entire weekend. Reason being, again, when I was talking about how from 3rd to 10th it's already so tight, 6 points the gap. Now we've got Nottingham Forest and City who are just separated by a point. It's just going to be even more difficult for, both of them actually. A win is so vital. I think whoever wins this game obviously would either Nottingham Forest stays in 3rd or City will leapfrog them. And I think if other results don't go their way, they should drop out of the top 4 again. So this game is proven. I think it's going to be an absolutely difficult game for both sides, especially at the City ground. I think it's not easy to play at, to be honest. But again, albeit Nottingham Forest's form has been a bit wobbly as of late, I think this inspires City to probably have a chance, to be honest, to win. And of course, I have to back my boys, right? I love the club, as I've said, and even when I feel like we're in a losing ground, I still believe in them, especially now when Champions League are out, right? We're not too bothered about that because Champions League games have just happened, and less than the 2 days break to the Premier League game for a lot of the clubs here. City didn't have to bother about that. The FA Cup, they're probably still in a hunt to win the whole thing, to be honest. We could be upset by Bournemouth. I hope not. But regardless, I'm gonna say it's gonna be a 2-0 win to Man City. I think it's gonna be tight. I think it's gonna be tough. We know how good Nottingham Forest can be on the counter attack, as well as when they're trying to move forward with the ball. But I have faith in City. I love this club. As I've said, I believe there is something in them to at least get the win. As I said, this season it feels like more of a transition season. And I guess it's really important for us to get as many wins as possible and stay in the top 4. So hopefully this happens. We leapfrog Nottingham Forest and we push forward as a club. Right, moving on to Liverpool and Southampton. Now this one I think it's pretty straightforward, isn't it? Nothing much to say in general, unless Southampton. Southampton would like to shock the world, which it could happen. There's always a probability of Liverpool losing, right? It's never a 100% win. But of course, I think the game against Paris Saint-Germain over the week in the Champions League, Liverpool, in my opinion, they were very lucky to get the win. Alisson really, really saved Liverpool. I think Liverpool had like 2 shots the entire game, 1 shot on target, 1 goal, and Paris had like 20-odd shots and so many on target. And yeah, Alisson Becker was pretty much, it felt like Alisson Becker versus PSG that game. But Southampton is a different ball game in a sense, it's a lot easier. Ultimately, we believe, and I think a lot of the fans would agree, that Southampton, they are a very good championship side with that squad that they have at the moment. It's just really not meant for Premier League, as I said multiple times anyways, since Beyond the Touchline has started. So, but somehow putting in a very slim margin, a 1-0 win. Now, reason being, I'm not exactly too sure what I've seen from Paris is convincing enough for Liverpool to do well against Southampton. Just me probably thinking too much, but I believe Liverpool are probably going to win. without a doubt, right? But you know, it could happen. I mean, I don't want to think of the impossible. To me, what feels like the impossible. So it should be relatively okay. I mean, Liverpool should be winning this one. If they don't, I'm a bit more perplexed than anything, to be honest. So let's see what happens for this one, though, shall we? Right, Palace and Ipswich. Now, this one is going to be very interesting. Obviously, as I said, Ipswich, they are trying to fight as much as they can, you know, to survive in the Premier League. And obviously, Palace, I don't exactly think they're fighting for too much. I think in terms of, you know, being relegated, they're probably past that stage now. But again, creaking, breaking into the top 10, that might be a challenge for them as well. So I think in the Palace, they are currently in a bit of no man's land. I think in the sense it's just like Everton at the moment, also in a bit of no man's land. I think the top 10 is a bit too much for them to reach. Essentially, they've got to just fight for the top half of the bottom half, essentially. So 11th to like 15th, and Palace has really got to fight for it. Ipswich is ultimately fighting for survival. That is their aim moving forward. How do I think this game's going to go? I genuinely believe that it's going to be a very interesting one. Again, that 4-1 win that Palace had against Villa, that obviously shocked me massively. Could happen again. I think probably Glass has done exceptionally well. Don't get me wrong. Ever since that wobbly start of the season, I think if we were to take the points that after that wobbly start, I think Palace would probably in quite a lofty position right now. But again, Premier League is all about consistent form. City have been a very good example of that this season. They're such good form at the very start of the season has obviously allowed them to stay where they are right now in terms of, you know, hovering around top four. Otherwise, it'd been very problematic. As I say, there was a period of time where Southampton were picking up more points than them, which again shows how form in the Premier League is just very, very crucial. But for this one, I'm going with a shock result here. For me, at least, it's a shock. Right? But ultimately, I think it could be very tight. It could be a battering, or it could be very tight. But nonetheless, I think a 2-1 win for Ipswich is, I'd say I'm trying to play around here, you know, trying to predict a possible shock result. And I think this might just be one of those games. Again, as I said, Palace still lack that level of consistency in general. I think now Jean-Philippe Mateta as well is injured with this after the FA Cup clash. You know, with the goalkeeper, they're probably missing such a important striker to them. So I think it could create problems for this game at least. But we'll see how ultimately, as I said, you know, I'm just predicting a shock. But honestly speaking, on paper, Palace should be edging over Ipswich for this one. Alrighty, Brighton and Fulham. Now for this one, again, this is going to be a very difficult game. But I think momentum-wise, it's definitely on Brighton side. The win against Newcastle over the weekend, and again, you know, them picking up points here and there. It's good. You know, I think the Brighton's form at the moment is so hot to the point, you know, they've really just got to continue going. They've got to take this to the maximum, you know, advantage. As for Fulham, again, really good as well. Obviously, rather decent. It's just that, again, up and down sometimes. But as of late, I think it's still pretty positive. This game's going to be tough, to be honest. But in my opinion, at least, it's swinging towards Brighton so much to the point I can't disregard them not having a win. So I'm putting it 2-1. Again, crazy things can happen, as I've said. But with what I'm seeing for Brighton over the past couple of weeks, again, seeing them having that winless run for like the longest period of time, it felt. It seems like things are taking a turn. The team's clicking a lot better together, and their attack looks very lively. Defensively, they look quite steady. It's quite stable, quite decent. I know Fulham are probably going to do the same anyways, which I think this should be a relatively tight game. Of course, I think Fulham on a very good day, they could really put on some damage, and this game could be, again, one of those games. Marco Silva has shown himself, you know, as a pretty decent manager in the Premier League himself, and he knows what to do. It's just, you know, ultimately to get consistent results week in, week out. I think that's obviously the challenge of any club, essentially, in the Premier League. That's how you win anyways, to begin with. But for this one against Brighton, I'm sure there might be some hiccups here and there. Ultimately, the passion at the Amex Stadium from the fans is going to be huge, and I think Brighton will have the backing from them. You know, again, I'm taking the home advantage into factor as well. Of course, it could be a defeat for Brighton. It could be a draw. It could go anyways. I mean, you know, Bournemouth, Brighton, Fulham, when they've all played against each other, I think it's really difficult to predict. It's rare that I've gotten them correct anyways in general. Every time I predict, it kind of goes the opposite. So I think the actual result might be the other way around. But to me, it doesn't really matter. I think we should be treated to a really good game, this one. And I believe both sides of the fans, they should be happy. Yes, I know they're fighting for a very lofty position. But I think this Premier League season has really gifted us many, many good games. And I think this one is definitely one that we should look forward to. All right, Brighton. Oh my God. Brentford and Aston Villa. Um, this one again, Unai Emery. It's. I think first of all we've got to establish that Villa has had a really indifferent season than last year. Villa are in the Champions League this year, and they're arguably performing so much better continentally than domestically. I mean, the 3-1 winning against Club Bruges was brilliant. You know, to go 1-0 up, that thing, Club Bruges pulled it back, and after that, they just kept kicking on the door, you know, put the foot on the gas, and just kept steaming forward against Bruges. And they've, you know, been credited a very good result, right? 3-1 lead into the second leg. It should be relatively positive. They should be progressing to the next round. And I think we can just give them a little bit of an early congrats. But of course, Champions League, anything can happen. Who knows, right? PSV might score 6 against Arsenal in the next leg, which honestly I don't think is going to happen. But for this one, again, back into the Premier League, the results have been so wobbly. I'm confused when I see Villa play in the Premier League. I I just don't get it. Like how sometimes it just works, sometimes it just doesn't. It's very hard to tell. Um, and then for Brentford, I'm again, you know, sitting on the fence with the way they've been performing this season as well. It's been all over the place. I just feel between these two clubs, it's been so inconsistent on both ends. Again, the key word, I mean, throughout the past couple of episodes, has got to do with inconsistent, especially when it comes to predicting. You know, when I do predictions, at least there's a lot of recency bias going on. Of course, I take into account on paper sort of ideas, right? I mean, on paper, who should be winning, etc. But you know, Brentford and Villa, it's difficult to predict them this season. I've gone with a rather, I wouldn't say if it's safe because I don't even know what's going to happen, but I think 1-1 draw at this point in time, I think it's an okay result to go with. It could go crazier, of course. It could be like a 5-0 Villa smash, it could be a 5-0 Brentford smash. I don't know. Um, but I just don't know. I can't seem to give you an answer for this one. So um, on paper, generally speaking, on paper, Villa should be winning. But again, as I said, considering how Villa have been performing throughout the entirety of the season so far, it's been so wobbly. To the point I've just got to put it like this. I mean, I'm probably going to get the result wrong anyway, so just dumping a prediction there. Right, Wolves and Everton. As I said, Everton, I can't remember when was the last time they lost a game. Now, since Moyes' arrival, I think if not lost a game since Moyes actually arrived at Everton again. His return, as I said, his return to Everton has been rather sublime. Wolves obviously on the end or receiving end of a defeat exit in the FA Cup, which I mean their fight against Bournemouth was pretty big to be honest. Of course, without Cunha, at least for this game, I'm not sure it's going to be 3 games. I don't know what's going to happen, but regardless, this one I just don't think it's going to be on Wolves' side. I mean, when you're missing out Cunha, who's been as influential as Mohamed Salah, arguably in my opinion, right, we've got to compare the stature of both clubs, right? Liverpool, such a big club. Obviously, Mohamed Salah is going to try to put them to win the title. What Cunha is doing is trying to survive, right? Trying to help Wolves to survive. And Cunha's done an exceptional job, don't get me wrong. I love what Cunha is doing, and I believe he should leave the club. Of course, I think that conduct that he did against Bournemouth in the FA Cup was a bit silly, of course, but you know, talking about technical ability, what he's been delivering at Wolves, he's shown he should be, you know, in a much better club than Wolves, you know, at least top 10 club. Where will he probably suit? Honestly, I don't really know. Will he suit at a club like Chelsea? I think probably not. Arsenal, maybe. City, I'd say probably at this point. You know, we've probably got to try to see how we can, you know, navigate more different sort of plays with different play styles, you know, coming to the club. But again, with what we've seen from Cunha, or what I've seen from Cunha at least, it's been remarkable. If I was a manager or a scout, and I know his play style is going to suit the club, I'll go for the signing instantly for next season. So I love what I'm seeing, but because he's not going to be in, I think it's going to be detrimental for Wolves. And as for Everton, there is a level of faith, I guess, in them. What they're doing now is pretty good. So I'm going to say it's a 2-0 win for Everton. Of course, the previous 2 games I think were draws. I think the Man United one was concerning for sure, that defeat. I can't remember who they played against. Oh, of course, Brentford. Yeah, so they drew against Brentford, which again, arguably could have won. I remember now. Better had some really good chances. He missed them, so that created problems as well. But yeah, I think Everton should be winning this one comfortably-ish. They should be dominant, I feel. Just don't really see Wolves really knocking on the door for this one. I'm concerned. I mean, they're probably going to survive the Premier League, of course, but by the skin of their teeth. But yeah, for this one, as I said, Everton should be winning this one. Should be. Right, Tottenham and Bournemouth. I think this is going to be a really interesting game as well. Of course, as I said, Tottenham's form have been getting slightly better, of course. Not fantastic either, but relatively speaking, it's still not too bad. As for Bournemouth, I don't know. Again, as I said, they've been brilliant this season, of course. But sometimes on a game-to-game basis, it can be difficult to predict Bournemouth at times. And I felt like their performance against Wolves last time out in the FA Cup was slightly disappointing, I think, to a certain extent. I think, in the Premier League, obviously, a 1-1 draw, that's it pretty much, right? You've got to accept that draw. A little bit of problems here and there that I felt like maybe would have been surfaced in a debrief, or maybe things, they knew they need to be slightly better than that. And I'm sure they know they're much better than that. I've seen the way that they've been, you know, um, playing in the Premier League. Of course, the defeat against Brighton is a little bit upsetting. It probably morale-wise a bit affected, but still relatively good from Bournemouth this season. In fact, stellar in my opinion. What Areola is doing at the club is obviously incredible. So, but I think this one's going to be 1-1 draw. I think it's going to be a tight game. I think Tottenham would probably put on something, for sure. I think the injuries are getting lower now. I mean, obviously, like Vicario being back as well. And Madison's back, I think. So I think the list of injuries are getting lower, and we can see something kicking on slowly. I think results are starting to kick in. I think Tottenham's youth as well. I mean, they've tried to cover up as much as they could in the absence of the senior players, and I think, relatively speaking, it's okay. It might be a good turn for Tottenham here and now, but I think this one, it's going to be difficult, to be honest, to get the win. I'm just going to say it's a 1-1 draw, but I mean, both teams really could win this one. I just don't know who. Right, Chelsea Leicester, I think is relatively straightforward. I'm not going to even talk about it too much. Again, what Ruud is doing at the club evidently is not working out. I'm not sure he's trying to change tactics or whatever, and I don't really feel there's a need to explore that, because I think there's been many games that Ruud has taken charge now and something's not clicking. To go like 6 consecutive home games, you're not scoring a goal. That's crazy to me. And now you're away at Stamford Bridge at Chelsea, where yes, they can be consistent, but once they dominate games, I tell you, they really dominate with a punch. Regardless of the scoreline, just absolutely dominate. Straightforward for me. At least minimally has to be a win for sure for Chelsea, right? If they don't, problematic, of course. And I think the 2-0 win is a relatively okay result. I think it's decent enough to get the result over the line, at the same time to also be consistent. Of course, you cannot expect every goal, every shot on target to get in. I like Liverpool against PSG. But I think this one, Leicester shouldn't stand a chance. I just don't see it happening. So a 2-0 win for Chelsea, that should be the case. I don't know. If Leicester wins this one, I'll be very much amazed as well. Right, Man United Arsenal. Of course, I mean, both clubs up and down. Man United should be very worried. I mean, Arsenal have just smashed PSV 7-1 away from home. And now they're going to head over to Manchester United, who have like a 0-goal difference, I think, in the past couple of games combined. Yeah, it's going to be very problematic, isn't it? Old Trafford doesn't feel like a scary stadium anymore, to be honest. In fact, Molineux feels scarier. The G-Tech Stadium, Brentford Stadium feels a lot scarier. The Amex Stadium probably feels a little bit scarier as well. St James's Park probably feels quite scary as well. Old Trafford, really, honestly, not many people care anymore, which is a problem anyway for Manchester United. I'm sure they would realise and come to that adjustment in their head where something needs to change, and I'm not sure what's going on. Again, we're not in the club, we're not behind the scenes, we really don't know. Whatever is happening is again not working. Amorin came from such a good club, Sporting, where he was enjoying so much success there, took up this role at Manchester United. He has not been able to deliver whatsoever, in my opinion. He's been absolutely horrific. Team's not gelling. Everything's a problem. Striker's a problem, midfield's a problem, defence is a problem, Onana becomes a problem as well. I'm just putting it 1-0 Arsenal. There is no reason why I'm putting in such a slim margin. Arsenal could just go ahead early doors, and that's pretty much it. Sets up the rest of the game. They could try to do some shots on target, can't do so. Maybe game management after that, after that 1-0 win, and considering, after that 7-1, they need to try to do a lot of game management to try to rest their players as much as they can. I'm not exactly too sure if they're able to play all their senior players who played against PSV, for example. So again, this game against Manchester United is going to be a lot more management from Arteta for sure. Of course, alongside that, trying to get the win, trying to chase Liverpool down. If Arsenal do drop points here again, their hopes of the title are gone. Even if Liverpool were to lose, it's still gone. You can't do that. You need to win every single game that's remaining in the Premier League for you to even stand a chance of winning the title. That is the truth right now for Arsenal. They cannot afford to slip anymore. If they slip, I'm telling you right now, City could actually catch them. Just give City a couple of games of good run before, and Arsenal just needs 1 or 2 slip-ups. That's it. City could finish second by the end of the season. Arsenal really need to watch out what the approach is for the rest of the season. So yeah, they should be winning. I'm backing them to win. Maybe not very convincingly, but I'm still backing them to win. Yeah, I'm just not backing Manchester United. I think it's just as simple as that. Right, last but not least, West Ham Newcastle. Again, the wild card. I don't exactly know what Potter's going to do for this one. But of course, Newcastle at the back of a defeat against Brighton, and after this, I think they're going to have the EFL Cup final. So they really need to start doing something here to give themselves a good enough warm up. They don't really want to come into the game against Liverpool at the back of a defeat. I think that'd be very upsetting from them. I mean, obviously they're playing away, and West Ham can be very rigid at the back sometimes. Of course, I mean West Ham can be good, but again with Potter coming in, it hasn't been consistent or hasn't been as stable as I hoped it would be. As I said, the wild card is still there. So, but regardless, moving forward for this one, I'm looking at it honestly rather realistically. I'm saying the 2-1 win for Newcastle. I don't exactly have my faith in the Irons this time around. Again, this season I feel like it's also a transition period for West Ham. I think it's all about just trying to do as well as we can, just relax, and I guess I mean survival in the Premier League is pretty much there. Just try to fight for as high a position as possible. I mean, we just want to get as much prize money in general, and then from there try to improve next season, if possible, of course. As for Newcastle, I mean, you know, they should be winning this one. Or they should be rather confident to try to win this one. Whether or not they do is another question altogether. I have faith in you know the black and white stripes to really get the result over the line and you know at least try to be competitive against Liverpool. Whether or not they're going to win against Liverpool, I genuinely do not know. I hope they do, of course. I mean, I want to dent Liverpool, so whatever hopes that they have, I mean, the treble hopes right now they're having. But you never know what's going to happen, obviously. And I mean, on paper, Liverpool are a lot stronger than Newcastle, and then obviously they played each other in the previous Premier League game. Newcastle have lost 2-0, so difficult for Newcastle. Especially if you do lose this one or even drop points in this one. I think it's going to be a lot more of a harder challenge against Liverpool. I mean, to lose against Liverpool, then to have an FA Cup exit, and now probably if they're going to drop points in this one, it's going to be very problematic. Everything's against them. But of course, I mean, if you again ask Newcastle fans, they would rather lose this and win the league against the League Cup against Liverpool. So we'll see what happens with this one. But honestly, on paper, Newcastle should be winning this one. Right, anyway, guys, thank you very, very much for watching this one. Again, 10 games, 10 really exciting games. So obviously, I'm most looking forward to Man City, Nottingham Forest, and of course, Man United, Arsenal. I think those two are the biggest games. And City, Nottingham Forest being the first game of the entire game week. I'm sure a lot of eyes will be on them. Hopefully, City wins, and I'll be a happy man. But yeah, drop a like if you guys have enjoyed this one. And of course, subscribe if you're new. As I said, get discussing in the comments down below how you guys feel that this weekend's going to pan out. But yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Until then, goodbye.